Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process and for authors to learn valuable tips on producing and marketing your audiobooks. This podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Hello, I am so glad you're with me today because we're going to talk about one of my favorite kind of projects. That's full cast productions. This is style or a type of audiobook that is more fully produced, and this is on a significant rise in popularity. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of these projects as we go forward. And from my perspective, because I have the production background that I do, both with audiobooks and with theater, it really is a delight to me to be able to work on these kinds of complex projects. So today we're going to go through several different projects that we've produced, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the different ways that we've approached these different projects and some of the things to highlight in each of them. The first of these projects that we're going to listen to is from Quantum, The Trilogy Begins by Dean DeServienti. This project has a cast of 32 actors, and the cast was spread all over the globe. So one of our biggest challenges was having group recording sessions where we were dealing with, these time zones that were quite extensive in terms of the number of hours that we were spanning in a given day. One of the reasons for the wide expanse in terms of the location of the actors is because we were looking for genuine accents, natural accents, from various countries that fit the characters of this book that takes place in multiple countries. Some of the things I want to highlight about this project is we did use some original music, meaning we had music composed specifically for this project. We also used sound effects that were mostly within the scenes themselves and less so in the narrative sections. This book was written such that there would be, let's say, like an opening narrative, and then there would be extensive scenes with dialogue and some narrative sprinkled in within those scenes, but that narrative was minimal in context of the scenes. So what we were doing is mostly placing sound effects when the listener was in the scene rather than talking about the scene as lead up to that scene. And this novel was constructed with short segments of narrative and then these longer scenes and then short sections of narrative and then longer scenes. And it was a great way to both have this immersive experience with dialogue and to still be able to move the story along at a good pace. At the beginning of each chapter, we typically used some kind of music or ambiance sound effect that would bring us into the chapter, even though it was a narrative segment. Sometimes it would be music. And there were also scenes where we used music to help us if it was an action scene or there was a lot of emotional or dramatic tension in the scene, and it felt like music would be helpful to the scene. Okay, so now let's take a listen to a clip from Quantum, The Trilogy Begins by Dean DeServienti. At the end of the clip, I'll let you know where you can go get this audiobook if you would like to purchase it and hear the whole thing, which I do highly recommend. Okay, here's Quantum, The Trilogy Begins.
Immokalee, Florida, February 12th, 5:18 p.m. local time. The black van with tinted glass took off from the service station as soon as the man carrying a six-pack of Coca-Cola got in. There were 4 men in the van. 3 had been recruited by the CIA after being accepted into Army and Navy Special Forces. The 4th, who was also the squad leader, had joined the company immediately after finishing college and had been trained at Camp Peary, a notorious training facility known as the Farm. This was where Langley developed its operatives. After handing out cans of Coke, the man spoke to the squad leader, who was at the wheel of the van.
Do you think the targets are going to be where we're heading?
I don't have any idea. Those pics in the file were taken at 1400 hours by our satellites, and they don't show any activity worth mentioning.
Just 3 guards. From his profile, the owner doesn't strike me as someone looking for trouble. He's drowning in family money. What reason would he have to get into arms trafficking? And what's more, he's a gerontologist.
Paleoanthropologist. He studies what apes you're descended from.
That's what I'm talking about. What the fuck is he going to know about modern weapons?
It's probably a dead end, but still, we have to check it out. I've known grocery store clerks who handled TNT better than a munitions expert.
By the way, in the file it says here we're looking for an alleged technologically advanced weapon, probably bacteriological, of unknown function. What does that mean?
It means that we might find ourselves having to deal with a gigantic fucking shitstorm, something unlike anything anyone's ever seen before, and in that case, we're going to have to think up a way to neutralize the situation.
Anything bacteriological puts me on edge.
If you'd like to get your own copy of Quantum, The Trilogy Begins by Dean DeServienti, which I highly recommend, you can get it at bit.ly/ in capitals, QUANTU, lowercase m, which spells quantum, and then capital D, lowercase d, capital S, as in Dean DeServienti. It is also available at your favorite audiobook retailer. I would recommend the first site because that provides extra value to the author, and that's always good. The next project we're going to talk about is Cosmic Cowboy the Musical. This is by J.D. West. This project had a cast of 11 spread around the United States. The interesting thing about this project is that the author, who is a musician himself, came to the project with a whole, I think it was like 11 fully produced songs, already beautifully done, fully produced. So one of the interesting things about the process was interweaving the existing music and adjusting the narrative to fit the music and create that story. In this case, the story is actually there more to support the songs, though the story itself is really quite fun. This is sort of a romantic comedy / sci-fi country music piece. I hope you enjoy this clip from Cosmic Cowboy the Musical by J.D. West.
Remo's spacecraft flies towards the big blue pearl that is planet Earth. 1 million stars shine in the sky above Nashville Nights in Nashville, Tennessee. A small nightclub with broken neon lights depicting a kicking cowboy boot. One particular bright star in the sky slowly gets bigger and brighter with a purple hue around it as it enters Earth's atmosphere. We hear the crackle of a radio picking up a transmission. Remo's gloved hand adjusts the dial, tuning in to Jenna's voice, filtering out all the crackles of other stations.
How can I erase that look on your face when everything I say is wrong? How can we survive? Keep us alive.
He looks at the back of his glove, at the image of Jenna. Jenna is standing on stage, singing to a drunken, rough crowd of rednecks. Behind her are several male band members in their 20s and 30s in jeans, cowboy hats, and casual attire. Jenna herself is dressed in a white blouse, tight jeans, and cowboy boots, playing an acoustic guitar.
The dreaming of a better love.
The star in the sky continues towards Earth as thunder rumbles in the clouds.
Last night I took a walk. In my head I heard the talk. How you're taking me to school. Soon I'll be on my knees.
You can get on your knees for me, darling.
Only a few customers at the front are even listening to Jenna or the band. At the back of the club, tall, blonde Lance Dalton, in his 30s, watches Jenna. He wears a cowboy hat, jacket, and jeans. Lance glares at two drunk rednecks. Jenna raises an eyebrow and looks bothered, but keeps singing. Lance smiles broadly, catching her attention, pointing to his smile, reminding her to put on a happy face. Jenna smiles back, keeping up the facade, but then notices Lance pinch the butt of a waitress walking by with a tray.
It's time to realize the joke's on me. That the cruelest lies are the ones you can't see.
Suddenly, the two rednecks start shoving each other.
Hey, that's my beer.
Get your hands off. It's mine.
Clyde smashes the beer bottle over Rufus's head, and a rowdy fight breaks out, with other brawlers joining in. Lance ducks a flying chair and moves away from the bar. Bouncers charge in and grab the two drunk rednecks, hauling them out of the club, bashing open the door using their heads. The rednecks tumble out onto the wet concrete. It's pouring torrential rain. They swing a few punches and then give up. Yet, while the whole area gets drenched, there is a strangely circular dry patch in the middle of the parking lot. Unnoticed by the rednecks, Remo's ship is hovering in the darkness about 30 feet above the ground, acting like an umbrella. Its reflective surface mirrors the black night's sky and blends in, camouflaged. Lightning flashes across the sky, illuminating the flying saucer. Back inside,
Find me a better love.
Lance tries to encourage a better reaction from the crowd.
Thanks.
She turns to her band.
Thanks, guys.
Jenna steps down from the stage, and Lance approaches with a smarmy grin.
You did great, babe. Just great.
If you'd like to hear the whole story of Cosmic Cowboy, the musical by J.D. West, you can find it at your favorite audiobook retailers and libraries. Let's take a short pause, and then when we come back, we'll listen to a couple other full cast audiobooks, each with its own different flavor.
Do you have a book that you imagine with multiple voices, or a screenplay or stage play? At Pro Audio Voices, we love working on these more complex productions with music and sound effects and a full cast of voices. Bringing together decades of experience in both theatre and audio production, our team brings your project to life. From manuscript preparation to casting to directing the actors and a post-production team to bring it all together, Pro Audio Voices brings your project to life. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com/full-cast.
The next project that we're going to listen to is from Lin Sue Yoshimura, The Days of Darkness by J.C. Walker. This has a cast of 14 actors. In this one, some of the music is at the start of each of the larger parts of the book, but mostly we were engaging sound effects. Like Quantum, this project also had narrative segments and then full enacted scenes interspersed. This particular project, in differing from Quantum, is a little more on the narrative side and a little lighter on the enacted scene side, but there was still plenty of both. And I just want to comment on the sound effects for these kinds of projects. With all of them, some sound effects are sourced from existing libraries, and some are created specifically for the particular moment in the particular audiobook. Either way, the process is time-consuming. For example, there is a huge variety of gunshots and explosions to choose from if you're trying to search in a library, and trying to find just the right one can be very time-consuming. Similarly, the sound of pouring liquid depends on the viscosity of the liquid. Is it coffee or glop or what is it? And it also depends on what the vessel is. Is it a ceramic coffee mug? Is it a glass? Things like this. So, each of these can be quite particular, and attention to that kind of detail can take time and also makes a really great end product. Another difference between this and the approach in Quantum is that partly because there is more narrative in this project, the sound effects are more frequently in the narrative sections. So the narrative is actually telling a little bit more of the story in terms of percentage than the enacted scenes are. And I'm really just comparing between Quantum and Linsu Yoshimura as two different kinds of projects, and the way that we approached and the reason that we approached these in different ways. Okay, so now let's take a listen to Linsu Yoshimura, The Days of Darkness by J.C. Walker. There are going to be 2 clips with a short pause in between.
After the first shockwave had passed, the sniper hit his first target, the guard on the outer wall, in the forehead.
A little high.
The second guard who manned the drawbridge tower was shot through the eye.
A touch to the left.
He began to pick off the armed guards who rushed out of the vans onto the drawbridge one by one. The doctor depressed more buttons on the control board.
And the second clip?
They headed across the compound grounds to rendezvous with the rest of the death squad. King Linsu reached Jason and the surviving members of the death squad on the outskirts. The Apaches were still strafing.
One more minute and you guys were going to be left. Where's Bear?
He got smoked by one of Ramirez's men.
Damn.
Linsu gave King a single nod, showing her appreciation.
Delta Team Leader, this is Red Dog Leader. Do you read?
Loud and clear, Red Dog.
We're in position. Let's do this.
That's a Roger, Red Dog.
Lieutenant Colonel Taggart and Major Hanneran piloted their aircrafts toward the 2 trucks that held the cocaine.
Linsu Yoshimura, The Days of Darkness by J.C. Walker is available at your favorite audiobook retailers and libraries. And the last one that we're going to cover in this episode today is Girl with a Violin by Wendy Bartlett. This full-cast audiobook has a cast of 7, with a few additional voices added in for one of the songs at one point. For this, the author, also as in Cosmic Cowboy, is a musician, and she has lots of musician friends who were happy to send in clips that we could use for this story about musicians. And while the story is the focus, the music is really important and integral. Here now is a sample from Girl with a Violin by Wendy Bartlett.
Several weeks have passed when we find Martin sitting in his special chair, fingers steepled, head bowed, eyes closed, nodding approvingly. Bo is playing the violin.
Bodhi, I think you're nearing perfect. A little slower at the end.
Bo places the violin correctly, stands beautifully, and begins to play a fast Celtic piece.
I guess you don't quite understand.
Martin stands, walks to the door, unlocks it, and exits without a word. Bo sits down triumphantly, smiling at her rebellion. She then picks up the violin and plays the classical piece very slowly and very beautifully.
If you'd like to get this full audiobook of Girl with a Violin by Wendy Bartlett, it is coming soon to your favorite audiobook retailers. And that's what we have for you today in this episode. We love working on this kind of complex production. It allows us to bring all our skills together and bring together a cast of actors that are really talented and to create something quite magical for the listener. If you have a screenplay or theater play script or a novel that has a lot of dialogue and you'd like to explore this option, reach out to us. You know where to find us at proaudiovoices.com. Thanks again for joining me today. Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.